us to learn it, understand it, and apply it.
Cause being broke is just a state of mind.
That's capital, baby. That's capital. Credit is an asset. I'm finna show you why it's an asset.
When we get up in the habits of buying assets, our assets pay for our expenses.
These are just various checks I've gotten in 12 months for one house.
It's a mindset. We change the way we think.
Cause
I'm
being
just
broke is
talking
just a
about the
state of
stuff I heard. This is stuff I'm actually out here doing.
The credit world is going to change for you because now you're empowered with information and strategies to achieve whatever it is you're trying to accomplish.
I am a resource. I know y'all. Y'all know me. Reach out to me.
Oh, that's great. That's great.
Yeah, you know what time it is. Disclaimer. I am not an attorney, nor do I offer or give legal advice. So please understand that all information that we talk about in any of my webinars are strictly information and educational purposes. And most of it is just personal experiences with things anyway. So please understand this is not legal advice. And may you be blessed on your journey to find your power within these laws. Peace and blessings. All right, so we're going back to 15 U.S.C. Code, Chapter 41. We're still under Consumer Credit Protection. And we're going to look at debt collection practices now. This is Section 5, 1692. Let's click there. All right, once again, we're going to talk about debt collection practices. This is what regulates what the debt collectors can do in the collection of debt. Right? We're going to go straight to definitions. Once again, we already know what consumer is. We're going to go straight to debt and debt collectors. The term debt means any obligation or alleged obligation of a consumer to pay money arising out of a transaction in which the money, property, insurance, or services which are the subject of the transaction are primarily for personal, family, or household purposes, whether or not such obligations have been reduced to judgment. So, debt is what? Any obligation or alleged obligation of a consumer to pay money. Any obligation or alleged obligation. They put or, so you have the choice. Debt does not automatically mean that you owe it. It means it's an obligation or an alleged obligation. All right? Now, the term debt collector means any person who uses any instrumentality of interstate commerce. What? Any instrumentality of interstate commerce or the mails in any business, the principal purpose of which is the collection of any debts. So any bill that comes in the mail, by definition, interstate commerce instrumentality, because that is an instrumentality of interstate commerce, falls up under the category of a debt collector. So, where we left off, or who regularly collects or attempts to collect directly or indirectly debts owed or due or asserted to be due or due another, notwithstanding the exclusion provided by Clause F of the last sentence of this paragraph. The term includes any creditor who, in the process of collecting his own debts, uses any name other than his own, which would indicate that a third person is collecting or attempting to collect such debt. For the purpose of subsection 1692 F6 of this title, such term also includes any person who uses any instrumentality of interstate commerce or the mails in any business, the principal purpose of which is the enforcement of security interest. Now it's going to go on to the terms that it does not include. But we're more focused right now, for the sake of time, on what it does include. So it includes any person who uses the instrumentality of interstate commerce or the mails. We'll go back out of here and we'll go up to, let's back one. Let's see. Finance charge. Let's check out 1605, determination of a finance charge. Finance charge defined. Except as otherwise provided in this section, the amount of the finance charge in connection with any consumer credit transaction shall be determined as the sum of all charges. The sum of all charges. Let's bring that back. Except as otherwise provided in this section, the amount of the finance charge in connection with any consumer credit transaction shall be determined as the sum of all charges. So everything that has to do with that transaction is the sum of all charges, payable directly or indirectly by the person to whom the credit is extended. By who? The person to whom the credit is extended, and imposed directly or indirectly by the creditor as an incident to the extension of credit. And that's one long sentence, right? But we understand that now what the finance charge is the sum of all charges payable directly or indirectly by the person to whom the credit is extended. So when we go off in these car lots, these dealerships, and we purchase vehicles, everything that has to do with that car, if it's being financed, it needs to be included in the finance charge. Whether any types of coverage, insurance, anything of that nature, it needs to be included in that finance charge. All right, we're going to get out of here now. We're going to back up just a little bit, go back to the subchapter. All right, debt collection practices. We're still here. Now, all of these categories right here is in relationship to this. Okay, so these are the rules that they got to abide by. We have the congressional findings and declaration of purpose. This is where Congress tells you what they figured out, what they found through their investigation, and this is why they wanted to go ahead and put this law down. The definitions of the words they're going to be using in this: the acquisition of location information, communication in connection with the debt, harassment or abuse, false or misleading representation, unfair practices, validation of debts, y'all. Validation of debts. This is that category right there. Multiple debts. Legal actions taken by debt collectors. What? Legal action? Let's look what legal actions a debt collector can do. Venue. Any debt collector who brings any legal action on a debt against any consumer shall, in the case of an action to enforce an interest in real property, securing the consumer's obligation, bringing such action only in a judicial district or similar legal entity in which such real property is located, or in the case of an action not described in paragraph 1, bring such action only in the judicial district of similar legal entity in which such consumer signed the contract sued upon, or in which such consumer resides at the commencement of the action. Now, the authorization of actions. Nothing in this subchapter shall be construed to authorize the bringing of legal action by debt collectors. Read that 3 times. So, does it sound like a debt collector has the authority to bring about legal action? Not to me. But once again, this is why we have to read this stuff. This is where our remedy comes from. Civil liability. Click on that. Up in this section, except as otherwise provided by this section, any debt collector who fails to comply with any provision of the subchapter with respect to any person is liable to such person in the amount equal to the sum of any actual damage sustained by a person as a result of such failure. So we must prove the damage. Once we prove the damage, in the case of any action by an individual, such additional damage as the court may allow, but not exceeding $1,000. Or in the case of a class action, such amounts for each named plaintiff as could be recovered under paragraph A, and such amount as the court may allow for all other class members without regarding to a minimum individual recovery not to exceed the lesser of $500,000 or 1% of the net worth of the debt collector, y'all. Do y'all hear that? So this is where we get remedy, civil liability. Now, let's back out. We're back to the beginning. So this is where our remedy comes from, y'all. We must get into these laws. We must read them. We must seek for understanding. We must also view case laws where we see these debt collectors getting sued. We hear about these big banks and stuff getting sued, right? They having to pay out to the consumers. We must go and read those laws to see what happens so we know how to use the same laws, right? Because it's for us, we're the consumers, and we can invoke this ourselves. You don't need no attorney. You can invoke this yourself. Get your own money.